university where future is driven by imagination. Experiential learning creates diverse opportunities, where industry exposure and international partnerships help you sail. Come, start your journey towards success with Amrita University.
Gentlemen, namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Blub World Web Talks 168th episode. What do they think is the future of education? And most importantly, how do they visualize higher education?
Embracing the technology. Technology is really an inevitable thing which we cannot just ignore because of the drastic changes that is happening. And we know that the buzzword called as the artificial intelligence, we talk always about that. It is part and parcel of our life.
When you have started accepting all kind of challenges to be mitigating the future in the school level, I feel universities have to bring it up. You cannot stay out of the changes. Mr. Daksh, a small data, we have almost 903 universities across India and about 40 to 50,000 colleges. With all major, minor subjects, with all combinations, what actually are we serving to our students in terms of curriculum to study?
How as educators we can lift children up. Now this is not something that is new, but it is actually the need of the future university to ensure that as educators we create a classroom environment that focuses and fosters emotions.
And the quality of the education and the holistic education development along with the life skill to be introduced when it comes to the higher education, because the areas like community engagement, service to the society and the environment of education and value-based education, especially due to pandemic and period, the stress management is to be introduced to the students, because the entire discipline and the students, what they have wanted to focus is totally lagging.
Definitely technology is a tool in our hand to resolve these problems. It is the biggest tool in our hand. But then, of course, at the end, the mission of the universities, which are right now also complex and very comprehensive, slowly it will be more comprehensive and more complex. But what are we going to do about it? How are we going to train our kids? And that has to start right from the school, not in the universities.
University of the future will definitely be one which is associated with technology, but will take the help of technology. But it will certainly not be overall digital. Note me, it will not be 100% digital option which will be available.
Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Blub World Web Talks 168th episode. In the last 167 episodes, we have talked to, interacted with nearly 3,000 plus school leaders on this very platform, where they have shared their ideas, opinions, innovations, and what all new are they doing in the education space. Most importantly, the Blub World Web Talks is a bilingual platform, so you can use in English or Hindi, any of these two languages in your complete conversation. Because to be very frank, language is not the measurement of knowledge. And यहाँ पे हम लोग ideas और knowledge exchange करने बैठे हैं. So let's try to know from all these amazing experts that we have today on this very forum, that what do they think is the future of education, and most importantly, how do they visualize higher education. आज के अगले 60 मिनट जो आप हमारे साथ हैं ब्लब वर्ल्ड वेब टॉक्स के 168वें एपिसोड में, हम ये जानने की कोशिश करेंगे हमारे सारे एक्सपर्ट से कि आगे भविष्य के विश्वविद्यालय कैसे होने चाहिए, उनमें क्या होना चाहिए, क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, और उनकी क्या ओपिनियन है कि स्टूडेंट्स क्या एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे होंगे उनकी हायर एजुकेशन से. So let's try to know from all these amazing experts that we have today that what do they think would define the future university. What would the student expect from it? What would the parents expect from it? And what would the universities expect from themselves in the coming times? Thank you so much everyone for joining in today. Before we start, I want to tell you all a very simple story that comes from a branding or advertising experiment that happened somewhere in Europe. That experiment was to tell everyone across the globe that we make the toughest glass. And for that experiment, they just put nearly 20 crore rupees in a glass box for people to break open. If they're able to break it open, they get the money. And that's the way they communicated that they were the strongest. Now, when we go to a university, when we look at infrastructure, when we look at professors, when we look at legacy, what would we actually be looking at in the future so that we know that we are with a resilient organization? So do we get to steal some money or some talent or some knowledge from the university itself? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. A very warm welcome to the Blub World Web Talks 168th episode. Let me invite the first speaker for today, who comes from the higher education space, comes from a space that talks about value education, that talks about spirituality, that brings in a lot of human aspect to education, and most importantly, a lot of responsibility with it. A very warm welcome, Brother Maheshwara Chaitanya, the Chairman of BTech Admissions and Deputy Controller of Examinations from Amrita Vidyapeetham, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. Maheshwarji, over to you for the next 3 to 4 minutes. A very warm welcome.
Namaste, and thanks for the wonderful opportunity. I have been listening to these talks for a long time, and I don't want to mix spirituality here because it's a totally broader term. But that said, I want to emphasize how the universities or the education organizations, the institutions who wish to impart the education to the future generation, because we are talking about the future generation, and what the students are expected, or what the students shall expect after 10 years or 15 years of time. The first and foremost thing is embracing the technology. Technology is really an inevitable thing, which we cannot just ignore because of the drastic changes that is happening. And we know that the buzzword called as the artificial intelligence, we talk always about that. It is part and parcel of our life. You just take this Swiggy or Zomato or any app, you will find AI application. So which means any student coming up from the school or the college is expected to understand the real-time application of artificial intelligence. So technology is important, technical skills are important, how you handle these things. Even in the last talk, I used to say that till 2019, we were never ever aware of such platforms like Zoom or Teams or Google Meet. And now that almost all the teachers have become experts in this, the e-learning platforms or the learning management systems. So technological skills, the technical skills, and finally the life skills. Life skills is very important because the whole 1.5 years made us the solvers to solving the different problems in the life. So we were forced to solve different problems in life as well as in career, primarily in life, but in career also. So how is it possible for us to, as an education institution, how is it possible for the schools and universities to make sure that the students think from a problem solving point of view? So you have the technology, you have the technical skills, and you have the problems defined. We know that the country like India is going through different issues, right? So for example, even 30% of the students still, they don't have the access to online education. So how do you solve it? So how is it possible to make sure that you're reaching out to the masses? When we say that we are digitizing entire thing, does it really mean that the cream of the students, or the very good students, are we able to reach to them? So how do we solve that? And even in the last session, I had cited one interesting examples which I always observe. How the teachers and the principals, the educators were able to conduct the examinations during the pandemic. So keeping a lot of things in mind, keeping a lot of issues in mind, and they were able to solve that problem. So the principals themselves became the problem solvers. So how can we train these children right from the primary school to think from that point of view, where they have the skills, they have the technical skills, they have the technology, and use those skills, integrate, bring everything together, and try to solve a problem faced by the humanity, rather than misusing the technology. Because we know that the cyber crimes are increasing every day. So how do we educate the children, the future generation? Okay, this is what happens if you misuse the technology. So show them both the sides. Don't tell them, okay, this is the only thing. No, we have to explain them the consequence, because nowadays the children are become much more smarter than the teachers. So ultimately, a university or an education institution will have to think from this point that they have to be a problem solver with human values. So that is how we should think of. Thank you, Daksh.
Thank you so much, Maheshwarji. And yes, when we look at students or when we look at the expectation that should come out from higher education is the student must become a problem solver with a heart, or rather a human problem solver, not just an AI powered or knowledge powered bot that he becomes the way we expect technology to work. So when we talk of embracing technology, AI being a part of our life, and we also understand that most of the redundant jobs would typically go away. And we all cannot be innovators. So what do we really expect from higher education? What do we expect from the university to build the future of the student? Will we only be teaching them technology? Or what all critical factors will we be teaching them? Let's understand these all new aspects and questions of how would you define the university of the future from our school leaders today, because these are the people who fight it out every single day in their classrooms when students want their counseling, when they want their advice to take decisions on their own careers. Most importantly, remember, Blub World Web Talks is a timed platform. So once your speaking time is over, you might get muted. If you get muted, please don't get offended. It's just to finish the activity on time. So let me invite the first school leader for today to share their opinion on what do they expect or how do they define the university of the future. A very warm welcome, Mr. Manoj Kumar Tiwari, the principal of Gaur Group of Schools from Bangalore, Karnataka. Manojji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio and a very warm welcome.
Good evening to Daksh and all the panelists. Namaste to everybody out there. It was really, interesting to listen and to interact. First of all, I would like to appreciate the topic which has been chosen for the interaction. It has a lot of relevance and significance post-pandemic. Sorry, I'm using the word post-pandemic. Okay, because the world which was before 2021 and the world which is going to be after 2021 is going to be sea change. There's going to be big difference in that. In that case, understanding the mindset of the children, of the parent, those who are going through all this, and then what are they looking forward. For example, a child is in grade 11, 12, whichsoever stream the child is. Then in that case, when the child is passing out grade 12 and looking for a university, then in that case, what is going to be the expectations actually? So, what I feel, it's going to be infinite, as vast as universe, as deep as any ocean. Because when you have started accepting all kind of challenges to be mitigating the future in the school level, I feel universities have to bring it up. You cannot stay out of the changes. Mr. Dash, a small data, we have almost 903 universities across India and about 40 to 50,000 colleges with all major minor subjects, with all combinations. What actually are we serving to our students in terms of curriculum to study? Because let us understand what challenges are they going to face. I completely agree to the sir, those who have spoken, that we need to understand two things very clearly: where the technology starts and ends, and where the human interference comes into the picture. Because a child is a mix of so many things all together: emotion, curriculum, knowledge, family, ecosystem, so many things all together. What I feel, a child who is about 18 years old stepping into the university or the colleges needs a bigger horizon, needs a bigger view to look at the picture. In that case, first thing is that curriculum should not be a barrier. It has to be without any territory. Why I'm saying this? Why? Because what child would be taking after step 3 years, 4 years need to be get in line to it. Design thinking is very important. Are we fine tuning the child with his own acumen, talent, skill, and mobility to see that he is a worthy future citizen in all its capacity, whether he is in the field of startups, innovators, organization, profession, profile, whatever he or she is that. And then again, understanding one thing, the basic ethos which the child has learned from the family and the schooling system, is it getting transited from school to the universities or not? In terms of, what are we giving in terms of activities? Critical thinking, again, Mr. Darsh, is going to be very, very important, because what are we originating as and where it is reaching, that is, I think, is going to play a very, very critical role in that. So what I feel, that the definition of the future university has to be something very, very big, something which embraces all changes, all happening all around. Universities have to sit with the technological changes which is happening. They have to incorporate both the parts of it, whether it is liberal arts or whether it is the technological changes, which they have to bring both the worlds together to see that child gets the break even where the choice lies with them. Counseling, again, I feel is going to play a very, very important role in that, because I cannot wash off my hands only by admitting a child into a curriculum, how the progression is happening and what all.
Thank you so much, Manoj. So the 3 minutes were over. So let me try to summarize what you said. I think you added a couple of good points to the discussion. That most importantly, we are seeing a phenomenal change, and this phenomenal change has given us challenges which are far beyond our mitigation capabilities. We have to enhance as institutions, we have to enhance as individuals, and most importantly, this enhancement that has to come in, we are not able to define that, because it's so wide, it's so deep, that we are not able to actually visualize that should we be going deep or should we be going wide. We are trying to figure out our strategy ourselves, that if we want to envision the future, if we want to get ready for the future, what should we be looking at? Would it be only critical? Would it be only skills when we talk of critical thinking, when we talk of problem solving, when we talk of design thinking? Or we need a thought process change? Do we need to teach students to do things or think of things? Because I think where technology comes to an end is thinking. Technology cannot think. And most importantly, most of us as humans were never trained to think. So let's now invite the next speaker to take their opinions on how do they define the university of the future. Mr. Joseph David, the principal of Kingston High School from Bengaluru, Karnataka. Mr. Joseph, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, and my fellow panelists. It's really a privilege to be a part of this panel and to share and discuss and to take home few key elements about what our future universities is going to look like. As I was thinking about this topic, a Chinese proverb came to my mind which says, if you are planning for a year, sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, you plant trees. And if you're planning for a lifetime, you educate people. And as educators, we can all very easily, relate to this. And we would all unequivocally agree, that education is definitely a core ingredient of our life. Here we are discussing about the university of the future and what it should capsule. And one of the obvious ingredients of a futuristic university, as we are all talking about, is definitely education. But does education refer to only reading and writing, or is it beyond that? And we would all agree, being leaders, being teachers, being educators, that it is way beyond that, and education is all about preparing one for life. But another key ingredient, which I think Mr. Daksh mentioned during, when he was talking in between, and that was about the heart. And I think that is a very important inclusion that a university of the future should have, the heart, which is actually the lifeline. Being educators, we are all very well aware of that in our lives, we are all people who have been called for a higher purpose. And we are not just here to merely churn out, machines or products from vending machines, but we go way beyond that. And, we are now, especially now as Brother Maheshwara was saying, we are also good at technology. We know how to handle the different platforms and so on and so forth. And therefore, technology is conspicuously playing a very important and a predominant role. But I just want us to pause for a moment and think if that is what education should actually legume, for the future. While we all agree that, the 21st century, classroom should definitely have technology, and it does play a vital role. Very often I have seen in today's age and time that as educators, very often we forget or we leave the heart behind. We focus on technology and leave the heart completely behind. We teach subjects rather than teaching students. And these are all elements that we experience as leaders as well. We find that as educators, educators in today's world are more concerned about completing the curriculum and competing and all that, but we forget, or rather we do not focus on collaboration, which is a very important aspect. Recently I've been reading a book titled Teach by Heart by Dr. Thomas DeLong. He's a university professor from Harvard Business School. And he was saying, or rather this book actually talks about how as educators we can lift children up. Now, this is not something that is new, but it is actually the need of the future university to ensure that as educators, we create a classroom environment that focuses and fosters emotions. When children are given opportunities to make learning connections with emotions, it is said that that is when they learn best. I myself as a student.
Thank you so much, Joseph, sir. The 3 minutes were over. So let me try to summarize what you said, the important points that you've put forth. Most importantly, the university of the future must have a human heart. Not only technology brains and the best in the class laboratories, it also has to have a heart in the complete process of its own educational transformation that it does. Most importantly, is education only reading and writing? Now it has to go beyond reading and writing, beyond content. And I think one of the professors from Harvard wrote a book that got very popular across the media circles globally. That was written by Professor Bharat Anand, who's, I think, the media HOD for Harvard. Now he's in what position, I don't know. But he wrote a book called The Content Trap, which told the complete media industry that you have to get out of the content trap and get into the engagement model of it. And that's the way media, entertainment, and content changed forever. And right now we are in that age where it has changed for all of us. Now it's no more about content, it's more about engagement. So I think that book right now becomes relevant for the education space, that you also are there in a content trap that you have to get out of. So I think the learnings have to go beyond just the education space, because when we look at our human lives, the silos of subjects, the silos of specialization have broken, and we are all in a much more flat world. And when we are in a flat world, we need to know nearly everything, which is nearly impossible. So let's now know from the next speakers, again, how to define the university of the future. The next speaker for today, Professor Dr. M. Rajini, the founder chairman of Lakshyam Educational Group from Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Rajini ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute your audio, and a very warm welcome.
Yeah, namaste. Jai Guru Devo Bhava to all the audience. And I'm having immensely pleasure in the forum to talk about defining the university of the future. I hope during this pandemic period last year, the national educational policy has been defined a lot of drastic changes in the curriculum and educational system. And it's really, we can say, the pillars of the society. We can say that it's called TIPS. So that is teachers, institutions, parents, and students. So these are the 4 pillars of the society who are going to define the nation into a greater heights. So when there is right from the ancient time, there are Gurukul method. But after that, chalk and talk methods were there in the school education. And then there are many methods have come. But now Indian educational system has lost their value, and the Finland has taken the place. When it comes to the school education, there are 100% of the school education we have attained in percentage. But the ratio of the higher percentage, higher education, it is now as per 2018, it is only 23%. And this national education policy is aiming in 2040, bringing this into 50% of the higher education. So in this way, if you consider, there are many things have been defined already by the Ministry of MHRD. Of course, now there is no MHRD. It's directly coming under the Prime Minister as an Ministry of Education. There is no UGC. and there is no AICTE, everything, including no MPhil also. All the higher education system has come to 4 years where it has been a multidisciplinary course, that is a multidisciplinary educational research universities called Meru. So where you have multiple entries and multiple exits will be there in the higher education. So first year it will be considered as a certificate course, and the second year it will be considered as a diploma course, and then the third year will be as a degree course, and the final fourth year will be as a research based courses. So when the people are completing every year on year, they'll get a certification. Anytime they can enter into it and anytime they can come into it. Similarly, ABC we call the academic bank of credit has been introduced. It's a cumulative of the marks where we can bring in. So this actually a lot of reformation and revaluation in the education system we can say in NEP what they have brought, and the institution development plans are there in that, and the autonomous degree colleges and all those things comes under college limit, and open distance learning also has been introduced in this. It is actually like light, but it's very tight, I can say. And also when it comes to the profit also, the entity has been surplus to be invested for the improvement of the universities and for the higher education. And the quality of the education and the holistic education development along with the life skill to be introduced when it comes to the higher education, because the areas like community engagement, service to the society, and the environment of education and value-based education, especially due to pandemic and period, the stress management is to be introduced to the students, because the entire discipline and the students, what they have wanted to focus is totally lagging. So I think in this pandemic period, we have to focus on their de-stressing plans and everything. It will be helping for the students to focus on that. And the kind of higher education, the Dakshashila, Nalanda, such type of university.
Thank you so much, Rajini ma'am. The 3 minutes were over. So let me try to summarize what you said. You talked a lot about the national education policy that brought in a lot of changes, brought in a lot of flexibility, a lot of entry exit ease for everyone, the Academic Board of Credit coming in. One of our advisors on the Blub World's board is right now one of the members of the Academic Board of Credit, Professor Dr. Sandeep Sancheti. He introduced a very nice novel idea in one of the meetings that he's also introducing in the ABC, that exams on demand. Don't give students a date when you want to take an examination. Tell the students that when you are ready, tell us when do you want to have an examination, and that will be a much more better evaluation and would give a better opportunity to every single candidate in the examination. I think you gave a very important observation that India as a country, we started with the Gurukul format of education. We had our own ethnic way of teaching and learning, and now we have completely adopted the Finnish education system, or that comes from Finland. So this major transition, was it just on the basis of the merit in the Finnish education system, or was it some kind of a complex that we had as a nation or as people? Was it just because we thought it has a better positioning, or was there a real evaluation of the benefits that were there on the contrary to the Gurukul education system that we had? You are right now telling in the next section of your speech, you talked about that now we are again looking at institutions like Takshashila to come up, like Nalanda to come up, universities that go back to that older format. Now, this is the real fight and the discussion, that are we really looking at going back to the ethnic of it, or at the positioning of it, or what is the real basis or the metrics on which we'll judge or define the university of the future? So let's have the next speaker speak on this and share their ideas. A very warm welcome, Ms. Manju Chakrawati, the school head for the Green School, Bangalore. Ma'am, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, and a very warm welcome.
Very warm. Thank you so much, Daksh, and a very good evening to all of you. I mean, of course, I've been listening to all the speakers, and definitely they have given very interesting points. What we as school leaders, come across that the future universities will be named as engaged universities. Now, when I talk about engaged universities, the point comes, look at the situation right now we are into this pandemic. Entire world is suffering from so many things. The pandemic came in, it brought in many other challenges. When we talked about the second wave coming in, so much of problems happening. From 1999, the population in this 40 years has doubled, and imagine the kind of resources available at our end. So as school leaders, what we think, very next immediate future universities have to focus on these areas, which are like resolving problems related to urbanization, revitalization, education and economy, food resources, water resources, all these will be the real-time problems coming in our hand. And universities, be it online, be it offline, they will have to resolve these situations. So when we talk about technology, definitely technology is a tool in our hand to resolve these problems. It is a biggest tool in our hand. But then, of course, at the end, the mission of the universities, which are right now also complex and very comprehensive, slowly it will be more comprehensive and more complex. But what are we going to do about it? How are we going to train our kids? And that has to start right from the school, not in the universities. Universities, definitely they will be working on more and more complex situation. But the critical thinking, what Mr. Manoj was saying, make them think right in the school level itself that your immediate surrounding has so many problems. When they have that eye over there, I think when they come to university, they will have a broader aspect and they will have solutions in their hand that I want to try this. Of course, I mean, 2 years back, there were many educationists who were saying about it that universities will be definitely online. You don't have to physically step in to the university and take your, and pandemic has given you a solution. There are so many universities who went completely online without even the students coming into the campus. Of course, I mean, there are certain courses where you can't, remove totally physical presence. There have to be physical presence. But then end of this context, what I'm talking about, be it online, be it offline, the engaged term that I have called will require more and more flexibility, responsiveness from the aspect, from the university, from the school, entire partners in the society. When we talk about the society, everyone gets included, be it your parents, be it your community, your society, looking at the urban development, looking at the problems that will be coming. I think that is where, the engaged university will be focusing on. And that's why it's very, very important that let's breathe in, start from the school level, that what is an engaged university, what is an engaged school.
Thank you so much, Manju ma'am. And yes, a much more engaged institution or an engaged university. And I think when you say engaged, you simply mean that that university will actually be conversing with the society every single day, whether by solving problems, whether by finding stakeholders, whether by doing research. So at the end of the day, they have to be more responsible as an institution. They have to be more innovative as an institution. It cannot just be an institution that brings in people, feeds them something, and puts them out with a degree. It has to be an institution that's transforming society. And not only a university, even schools will have to take up that role. Because most importantly, school was or is the location where you define the society. You tell students, this is the way you need to behave. This is the way you need to be, talking to people. You define the rules of the society within the school. The university polishes it. They take it to the next level. But now we have to go much beyond the etiquette of innovation. We have to get into the actual real mud and try to solve problems. Universities will now need a big list of patents. You'll need a lot of solutions that you are giving out as an institution. How are you empowering the people that are around you? The way it's corporate social responsibility, I think the universities will also need to have a USR where you will also have to take up more of societal problems around you. So let me now invite somebody who will bring in a perspective that I can say is a little bit North Indian, because most of the batch till now was majorly coming from the south of India. I don't want to sound racist, but yes, this is something where the perspectives change. Because, to be very frank, when I've talked to people from across the globe, from different countries, when culture changes, thought process changes, the expectations change. So let's now bring in somebody who brings in the North Indian perspective, or typically a perspective that comes from the big band Baja Bharat culture of India. In south of India, it's more about being focused on your work, being more sincere. In north of India, it's majorly the pomp and show. This is the racist view of things. Let's take a much more educated and knowledgeable view from the next speaker. Very warm welcome, Ms. Kesar Patel, the principal of Ma Anandmai Memorial School from Raiwala, Uttarakhand. Kesar, I'm over to you for the next 3 minutes. A very warm welcome.
Thank you, Daksh, for welcoming here. And I'm damn sure that you still thought I was in Bangalore and hence you invited me for this show. Well, I'll pardon you for that. But I want you to unmute yourself and answer a few questions for me. Which edtech company actually celebrated and brought in celebrity status to education?
I think most of them, because most of them hired big brand
One
ambassadors.
particular, Daksh, I have very less time.
I cannot name brands.
Okay, you cannot name brands. Fine. So we all of us know that the celebrity who was here. And later on, that same brand went on to acquire another brand. Okay, and you have written very vociferously over LinkedIn on it. I've seen that. So you cannot deny it. Okay. After that, what does all this mean? Does it mean I think it certainly means that we are turning our own students into digital natives, which is actually very, very bad scenario, extremely bad scenario. And now I'll come down to what you were saying. थोड़ा सा pomp and show तो बनता है. आपने कहा कि think. Well, so the next in thing for all of us, for all the educators out here, is STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, because that pushes a child to think, to do, to apply, and to learn the skills which cannot be taught through a textbook. Now, quickly listen to some figures. When we speak of women in STEM, the percentages are very less. Only 28% of the workforce of women is just working in the STEM field. Out of the 21% engineers, total engineers in the world are 21%, and 19% are into software engineering, and that's the only figure related to women in STEM. Why do people opt for STEM right now or engineering courses right now? Because when they pass out of or it is believed, and it is true also, that their earning value is 2/3 higher than any other if they pass out through any other field. This is what is bringing people into STEM. But now why students have to go into STEM is because they need to think, they need to analyze, and they need to apply. So the university of the future will definitely be one which is associated with technology, but will take the help of technology, but it will certainly not be overall digital. Note me, it will not be 100% digital option which will be available in the future. Right now, STEM, we are everywhere. There is STEM for us. There is STEM for us in English, mathematics, Hindi, everywhere. Why? Because we want all the students to actually go out, do, and apply. So a university of future, I'll just keep myself very short. The university of future is definitely the one which will be successful, will be the one which actually incorporates very practical, experiential learning courses, wherein the student goes in for personalized learning, because by that time he is age appropriate, he is matured enough to understand that and take on his own, and as the speaker before me said, come up with solutions for the society. So the universities will have to go in for patents, and those will be the universities which will actually have more credits to their advantage. Thank you, Daksh. That is the university of future according to me.
Thank you so much, Kesar ma'am. And yes, I think you added the perspective of STEM education, or which now is rephrased as STEAM, where they include art as well in it. So with these discussions, with these points coming in from all these speakers, what we know for sure is that the university now cannot be one more isolated institution. It has to be a part of the network of institutions. It has to be a part of the society. You have to now be more responsive, more communicative as an institution. So now when you've listened to all these people, when we listen to all of you, now it's an open floor. If you missed out on to anything, if you want to add something to the discussion, it's over to you. But before I open the floor, I want to put a simple question once again. We look at brands all around us. We look at their marketing. We look at their celebrities. We look at everybody who's involved in the complete pomp and show of it. But most importantly, the buying decision happens from our own hands and minds. So if we already know that the brand is skewing our perspective, why do we let it do it? And most importantly, why do we let it happen in the education space? All the other spaces, it's a consumable product that you're buying. But here, it's not a product that you buy. It's kind of a life. It's kind of your growth that you buy. So why do you let brands interfere with your decision-making when you're talking of education? I would want Maheshwarji's perspective on this first, and then we'll go to other speakers, that why do you let brands interfere with your education decision-making?
So you chose me as the controversial person, right? So I would 100% agree with what Kesar said, because education is now becoming an industry rather than becoming a service sector. And the way the things are being hijacked, I will call it hijacking. and I don't think that they can succeed in the long run. I'm 100% sure, because what ma'am had pointed out, are we really into it? Can we expect a student to think completely digital? No, definitely not possible. We cannot see technology is not an ultimate solution, and technology cannot solve all the problems 100%. That is 100% sure. And let me bring in, let me stitch the comments from all the panelists here. One, Manoj sir was talking about the curriculum barrier, which is very, very important, because now the colleges, the institutions, they don't have the privilege of changing the curriculum, and very, very few institutions are given the freedom to change. And what Rajini ma'am said about the multidisciplinary aspect. See, for example, I would cite Amrita hospitals. We have one super specialty hospital in Cochin, and there are 3 robots that does surgery. So what does it mean? A biology student is expected to understand how a robot works. So that is exactly what Kesar said. Basically, it is STEM. We have to bring in all the disciplines together to solve a problem. And when Manju was talking about the engagement, the real-time engagement, why don't we get the students involved in experimenting their ideas, and let them be part of the competitions, let them be part of the labs where they take the entire classroom theory outside the school, and let them visit the community, let them do some social service. For example, Amrita has one scheme called as Live-in Labs, where we send the engineers to villages, not the urban cities. We send them to rural areas. They identify where the electric problem is, and they try to solve the problem. So then they understand what is happening in the surrounding, what is happening in the country, and then they have the gratitude. So that is how we evolve the culture, which definitely the technology cannot replace. So that is the first thing. The second thing, when you ask me why are we allowing, personally I will not allow. See, when we talk about a huge thing, what we have to think is what I will think what I can do. I will talk to masses. I will conduct webinars. I will conduct sessions across the schools and teachers and children, and try to make sure that they are on their own foot. Okay, I don't want to sell my brain to somebody else. So give my brain to somebody else. I don't want to do that. Let me experiment with my own brain. So that is the culture which I will teach. So if I can make teachers think that point of view, I'll do that. It may take some time. There may be like-minders, then it evolves. And I don't want some industry to come up and hijack the entire education sector, which is totally, maybe it can be supplement, but I don't think it is a solution ultimately. Thank you, Daksh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Maheshwara. And I think you raised a very basic question that again brings us all back to the same question that I started with, that are we actually in a state, or are we actually in a mental and an infrastructural stage when we talk of education, where we are ready to prioritize experimentation over experience? Because all our decision making in education is based on, okay, this is the individual who's experienced, let him teach. This is the individual that has lived life more, so let's give him the opportunity, and we want our students to experiment. So are we really ready to do that mentality change within the education space? Anybody who wants to add next, you can just open your audio. It's an open floor now.
Dash, I'll just take a very, very small time. I'm quoting something in a very different perspective: of the human, by the human, and for the human. Now, how do I look into this? Of the human means organization. I completely agree to one point. Why did you allow the brands to take it away? Because education is a niche core human value over which everybody has a right. Any strata, any corner of the world, any part of the society. In that case, I very strongly feel organization plays very, very important role. A big change what I see is the education ministry. I have a lot of hopes I'm investing a lot of hopes into that. So first is of the people, then by the people. In that case, society has to come up and has to say no to anything and everything which is going wrong in terms of imparting education. Let us not make it a product. We are not making cement bags. It's basically the humans. And let us understand, any problem which is going to be encountered in the future will be resolved by humans only, and vaccination is a very small example which I'm giving in. Let's take example of India. Today we have 3 our own brands of vaccine, and it's doing success across the world. And of the human, by the human, for the human. Now, for me, for the human is the child. For me, the human, that of the human is child. His smile, her smile, his competency to be tested, and he should be able to execute whatever he is wishing to be. An engineer can be a good guitar player. Why that option cannot be given? Right? So in that case, I agree to everybody in this panel that we are talking about 2 things. One is the child who is going to the colleges. Another is what the child is coming out from the colleges and the university, because he is forming the society for the next level. I rest it here.
Thank you so much, Manoj ji. And yes, of the humans, for the humans, ये हम सारी बातें समझते हैं. But at this point, I want to simply introduce one more thing before the next speaker comes in. Education is a fundamental human right. We do not want this to grow as an industry. We want this to grow as a responsible, sustainable, social institution rather than a money-making machinery. The Chinese government took a decision, scrapped all the investment globally in the edtech space, took all the money away, stripped off billions and billions of dollars of value into absolutely nothing. That decision gives us the exact polar end of what we are all living in right now, where a lot of investment is coming in the edtech space. What do the next speakers have to say on this? And most importantly, again, coming back to that question, are we still ready to be influenced by branding in the education space? So I think Joseph sir wants to add something. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, more than talking about branding, I'm more focused on children, because I think that is where our focus should lie. As Ms. Manju was saying, she was talking about engagement, and that is, I think, a very that's a kind of a key ingredient, for us. And what happens is, even now when we are discussing, I was thinking, why is it that we do not have students in this discussion? Because they are the ones who are, whom we are catering for. We are talking about them being digital natives. We are talking about STEM and STEAM and whatnot. So I think it is very important that the university of the future, we are talking about curriculum, we are talking about multidisciplinary curriculum and concepts, from content to concept and all that. So I think one of the most important things that any university or university of the future, as educators, we need to do is, we need to bring in students into this whole thing, because it's all about them. And it's as Mr. Manoj said, for and by, and all these things. So we are talking about democracy in education. So I think that it is important that we include students, learners, while we are creating curriculum, so that it will be more meaningful and it will be a lot more engaging, because it comes from them. And over and above that, I think when they are there to co-construct the curriculum, there is so much of responsibility from their side, so that in terms of learning and all that. So I think that is my perspective, and thank you very much.
Involving other stakeholders. And I think, yes, let's bring the children in. Let's make feedback more important. Let's listen to what they have to say. Rajini ma'am, you wanted to speak something? You can please.
See, actually, the education is nothing but it is a life. It itself a life. We are just importing the knowledge to the next generation. So here, artificial intelligence, definitely it is required, because the old values and the new concepts. Because already the government has started Atal Tinkering Lab to all the schools, and further in extension, it's going to invest for the universities for higher education also. So the pandemic situation completely 100% we have been changed and transformed into a artificial intelligence, and the virtual education has been started. Here there is no question of hatred or I can't say and all. It's not at all possible. We have to accept the change. Because of these many years, we have been into the traditional form of education, and completely the world is going into the transformation, and we have to follow that. Where the teachers, they have to lead us to a legends. It is in the hands of the teachers. And ultimately, a teacher cannot be replaced by the artificial intelligence. So it is really required as per the global change and transformation. We have to accept a few points and digest, and we have to give a quality education to the students.
Thank you so much, Rajini ma'am. Before we go to Kesar ma'am, because she wants to speak next, I've been listening to this statement for quite some time now, that most of the people keep saying that technology would not replace the teacher. I respect the teachers a lot. I respect the ecosystem a lot. But most importantly, our teachers have already changed. As adults, you're being taught by AI. Your buying decisions are being governed by AI. So the teacher has actually been already replaced. We are being taught by technology every single day when we use some or the other application on our mobile devices. Kesar ma'am, over to you.
Well, Daksh, when we speak of this branded companies, I will be a bit candid over here. And what I really want to say is, number one, Atal Tinkering Lab, ma'am mentioned right now. What is that? Okay, that's an innovation center. It's a hub for innovation. What happens after that? A startup comes up. So a startup can be in any field. So if a startup is coming up in the edtech field, you dare not discourage your own people. Yes or no? Okay. Second, the content. Truly, if you look at the content given by these companies, will really help you to upgrade your rural India, which is actually lagging far, far behind. Far, far behind. The content which these edtech companies bring, in a million years, it's not possible for a teacher to deliver. Please accept it. Please accept it. Okay. That's a fact apart that an institution like me, where we are based in a rural setup also, we are not able to afford these branded edtech companies. I'll not deny, whenever there is a chance of taking free content from these branded versions, we do go forward for it. Because we do face a lot of challenges in terms of aptitude, a lot of high aptitude in the teachers that can be delivered to the students. So that's a big challenge which I'm facing, and I know it. So I'll not deny it. So on these two grounds, I think we cannot really deny the brands, but of course the taxes and the pricing and the competition, which will ultimately take it to the farthest end, which will be beyond anyone, can be controlled up to a certain, or rather should be controlled up to a certain level. Thank you.
Let's introduce government regulation in the startup ecosystem in the education technology space so that the prices can be controlled. There could be some rationing of content that keeps happening. And I think here I need to give you just a little small example. We can draw some content out of it. I don't know whether we'll be able to do it or not. I don't know. But yes, when we look at most of the countries, when we took off, countries who have invested a lot in education, where public education is far more successful than the private education space. When we talk of US, when we talk of countries like that, has rationing really helped them, or has it politicized education? Because there are teacher associations, there are challenges on both the ends. As a moderator, I'm supposed to tell you the challenges. The solutions must come from you. So I'm giving you the challenge that if you start rationing education technology, will that work? And most importantly, an observation that we see right now, there is a lot of edtech content piracy that's happening. Why am I using the word piracy? Because that is what it is. Whether you call it criminal or not, that's your decision. But should education content really be considered an IP? It's a fundamental human right. Then why do you let content get trapped as intellectual property? I think we had quite an invigorating discussion today. So we'll be looking forward to your comments in the YouTube section. But before this call comes to an end, let me share one story with you before this call really comes to an end. This story comes from all the way from the US. It's the story of a teenager. Her mother had the passion of creating or making candy at home. She felt that she should also be following that same passion. And by following that passion, she created a small little brand of herself. And that small little brand of herself is right now selling candies across one of the biggest retail chains in the US, and we call her the candypreneur. That's Elena Morse, who's a teenager, who's a millionaire and sells candy across Walmarts across the world. That's what we simply do every month. Try to find teens who are doing amazingly well in life and share their stories with many more teenagers. While working with them, we felt, let's bring them all together. And that's where the idea of the World Teen Parliament came into existence. We are trying to find 100 teenagers who can solve local and global problems. Once identified, they'll be trained, mentored, and funded to really solve those problems. We are thankful to our supporters, UNESCO New Delhi Office, UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute, and the United Nations Kindness Matters Initiative, and all our amazing supporters, Amrita University, Hangama Kids, Kidzania, all these people for bringing the effort of really making the World Teen Parliament a success. So at this point, I simply have one statement to give out to all of you and receive your comments and your suggestions in the comments box in the YouTube description. When you look at teenagers, when you look at the next generation, do you want them to be problem solvers? Do you want them to be like you? Do you want them to be evoluted? What do you exactly want them to be? Because that's the expectation that would redefine education forever. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of the Blub World Web Talks 168th episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, and if you want to do the future sessions, open your audio, say a big yes, and thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing evening ahead. Namaste.
A university where future is driven by imagination. Experiential learning creates diverse opportunities, where industry exposure and international partnerships help you sail. Come, start your journey towards success with Amrita University.